Okay, this is about the life of Angela and Thomas Trezza. It's Saturday, November 26th, 2011, and we're a couple of days away from celebrating Angela Trezza's 83rd birthday. This is part one, the early years. And so, Angela, let's talk about your early years, since it's going to be your birthday.
Yes.
Let's go back to your childhood. What was the earliest memory that you have in growing up?
Wasn't a good time.
Why wasn't it a good time? Where did you grow up?
Downtown Brooklyn, near the Navy Yard.
Okay.
And I lived with my grandmother. We were 4 little kids, orphans. My father got arrested. He was a bigamist.
How old was he? How old were you when he got arrested?
Well, I must have been about 3 when they arrested him, or 2.
And who was in your family? Sisters and brothers?
Yep, 2 brothers and my sister.
And their names?
Thomas, Frank, Margaret, and me.
Who was the oldest?
My brother Sonny. He was the oldest.
Okay. Did you have a strong relationship with your brother Frank, Sonny?
Oh,
Frank?
yeah, we were close.
Okay.
We all lived with my grandmother in her house.
Okay.
And we were on home relief. We used to stand online for food and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, until she met my stepfather.
Okay. When was that? How old were you when that happened?
About the same age.
About 3, 4 years old?
3, 4, yeah,
Okay.
when he came into the family.
Okay.
She met him in a speakeasy.
A speakeasy?
Uh-huh.
What was your mom doing in a speakeasy?
I don't know. She was fooling around, maybe. She used to be a go-go girl, but they didn't call her a go-go girl. What did they call them?
Flappers.
Flappers.
She was a flapper.
My mother, yeah.
And
Oh, my mother was beautiful.
your stepfather's name?
James Rossi. And he was a bookmaker. And he was with all the right guys. He gave us a home.
Okay.
Gave me a brother,
Right.
Butch Rossi.
So he was the youngest of the family.
Yeah.
So there
He's
was
3 years younger than me.
There was Sonny Brown,
Tommy
and
Brown,
Tommy Brown.
Margaret, me, and then Butch came along.
So there was 5 in the family.
5, yeah.
And were you all close growing up?
Very close.
Were you closer to one of your brothers or sisters than the other?
No, we were all the same.
Okay.
All the same. And then when we used to have to go to the home and my mother had to work in the factory, she had to leave my brother Tommy because the nuns, he was a bad boy. And my Uncle Bill took him. We lived in the same house. And he wound up taking my brother, not adopting him, but took him. Then they moved away. And we were always near each other, going from one house to the other. And that's how we got separated. But we were always close.
What about school?
School, I went to the Epiphany in kindergarten, Catholic school. I was there for maybe 2 years. Then we went to another public school because my mother had to move. She was on home relief. And we would get kicked out of one apartment to the others after my grandmother and grandfather left.
Wow.
They went to Mayapack. So, and then with Jimmy Rossi, we had to move because he was always getting in trouble. Had money, we were, you know, stuff like that, but we went from, I lived in so many homes. Really and truly, we did.
And what about school? Did you change
School,
schools
I
too?
went to another Catholic school in the 1st grade. Then I went to public school, and when I was 5, I went to St. James. I went there until I made communion. Then we moved over to the Brooklyn Heights, and I went straight over to PS8, graduated there. Then went to Girls Commercial, which is Prospect Heights now. And I went to a job after I graduated.
And
Worked for 7 years there.
So when you got out of school, you're about 16, 18 years old?
13 and a half. They were half terms.
So you started working when you were 14?
No, I was 16.
16, okay.
My sister got me the job.
So your schooling ended at around 16?
Yeah, high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went straight to work. I got picked up to go to the garment district, but my father wouldn't let me. He said they're all mafiosos. And my firm sent me to school for rating and stuff. I used to do calculating and stuff.
So what age did you meet Thomas Trezza?
I was 17 and a half. 17 and a half.
So I think this is a good time to maybe talk to Thomas Trezza and ask about his upbringing, where he grew up.
He was rich.
And where did you grow up?
Okay, my name is Thomas Francis Trezza Sr. I was born and raised at 185 High Street, Brooklyn, New York. That was the Brooklyn Navy Yard section, a very
Same.
tough section. It was mostly Irish and Italian. I lived in a cold water flat up until the day that I got married. A cold water flat is where you make your own heat. You put coal, wood, a little paper to get it started. How my mother and all the other mothers ever did this was beyond me. They cooked, they heated the house, and they baked, all in those stoves. And nothing got burnt. It was shocking how nothing got burnt. But we all had our jobs. In the mornings, as early as 5 years old, I used to go down and we had a closet just with the coal. I would get a pail of coal. The pail wasn't the big pail, it was the smaller pail, and an armful of wood. So this way, when my mother got up, she would start the fire. And I can still see her today. She had one of those robes on that was wool. Must have been very warm. In those days, wool does keep you warm, but I didn't know the difference. It was a plaid type. I still can see her making the fire. Then at the age of 7, I already was shining shoes in my father's store, who was a shoe repair man and had a shoe repair shop. And all the Trezza boys all had to do their job, not only in the store, but we had chores in the house, because we were 6 brothers plus my Uncle Jimmy, who we thought was our brother, and 4 sisters. If you'd like me to name them, I will. Starting with the youngest, my sister Wee Wee, whose name is Teresa, my sister Pauline, who wanted to be called Paula in her late life, and then my sister Helen and my sister Martha. My sister Martha was the one that helped mostly in the house. And actually, she's the one that brought up several of us, that there were so many of us kids. My brothers, starting with the youngest, was my brother Joey, my brother Rudy, my brother Alex, my brother Didi, and my brother Frank, who is better known as Ham Brown. My father was Anthony Trezza Jr., Sr., and his father was Alexander Trezza. He was a big man, not my father. My father was a man about my size, about 5'7 and a half, 5'8". My grandfather, who I never had the pleasure of meeting, either my grandmother or my grandfather, he was 96 years old when he died, and he was 6'6". So the only one that I could tell that was similar in height in my family is my son Anthony. But he wasn't as heavy as Anthony. He was a tall, thin man from the pictures that I've seen.
Who was the oldest in the family?
Ham Brown, but there was children before that. My mother gave birth to 24 children.
Wow.
And Ham Brown was the oldest. We were 4 brothers that was in the service during World War II. My brother Didi served from 1939 to 1945. My brother Alex served and was injured. A bullet went through his mouth. And he was in the artillery. My brother Rudy, who is truly a hero, not that my brother Didi and Alex were not, but Rudy truly was a hero. Some of the things that he did, I can't tell you, on this right now because I think we're running short on time. I decided not to go into the Army, as I seen my brothers, that I seen movies that they were eating in trenches, and I wanted to live a better life. They gave me an opportunity to either be drafted in the Army or to volunteer in the Navy or the Marines. I decided I wanted a clean life. Even though I didn't swim very well, I swam good enough to save myself. I went in the Navy for that reason, and I figured, God forbid, if anything happened, they would just put me on a slab and throw me overboard. And at least I would have died in a nice, clean way, rather than in some trench. And I was discharged. Well, I know I'm getting far ahead of myself, but prior to the service, I went to school. I went to school, and I was very good in grammar school. I was very good with math. Actually, I was the principal of my last grade, which was the 8B1. And in those days, the 8B1 was the smarter of the four. And the four was AP1, AP2, AP3, and AP4. And when it was time to graduate, I took the test, and I failed. I wanted to go to Brooklyn Tech. I failed, and nobody was there to help me to maybe get into that maybe I can make up those couple of points to go. And because of that, I was totally disgusted, and I went to a manual school for on-the-job training type of thing. And it was a course that I took, which was forgery, which I didn't like at all. But I do remember the teacher, and the teacher's name was Mr. Thompson. And I hardly went, and by the time that I was 16, I decided to leave. I always had a job. I sold newspapers on South Elliott Street, right off of Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, where the Net Stadium is going today. I sold that my hands used to be so cold. And the newspaper, I sold the New York Sun. My hands were so cold when I went to give change, which the paper was 3 cents, that it was hard for me to press on it, that my hands were so cold. And also, it was a good gimmick that if you didn't do it fast enough, the guy would say, go ahead, keep it for a tip. So we learned all those little tricks. We all worked, my brother Rudy, my brother Alex, everybody worked in the family. The girls had their job, and the girls worked hard, especially, without a doubt, my sister Martha.
Okay, we're going to end part 1 at this point and pick up both your lives as you now have turned 16 and 17. And so we're going to come back and pick that up at that point.